boils and ghouls. Turn out the lights and keep the popcorn coming, because it's time for another episode of Fright Fights Podcast. Fright Fights Podcast. Get ready for your gore gang. Tyler Cavan, Chris Lax, and Mike McKinney tackling horror news, reviews, and fight for their survival. Coming to you from the Fright Fights Fear Lodge. Get ready to sink your fangs into a battle that will make your blood run cold. This is Fright Fights. Fright Fights.
All right, welcome back, all you horror fans out there. It's your Fright Fights crew back again with another episode here today, and we are discussing horror, like comedy films, dark horror comedy later on in the battle. And just to let you know, unlike the writer's strike, we are continuing on throughout the summer. We're not going to hold off on our films or our podcasts or anything. We're going to continue on. And Mike and Tyler are both back with us again. And Tyler, luckily, he survived Nashville. I think we saw you on the news as the hotel worker that got caught and arrested for sucking on people's toes.
Yeah. They call me the toe sucker.
I'm just saying it worked out that you left and you went to Tennessee. You went to Nashville. And the exact same day that you left and wouldn't answer our texts and calls, there was a news report about somebody being arrested at a hotel in Nashville for sucking on people's toes. I'm just putting two and two together.
Hey, listen, they made a Candy Man. They got Toe Man. You know, he's just out sucking toes.
It's a Tie Man. It's going to be Toe Man.
Oh, yeah, go.
The Toto Man.
The Toto Man.
You guys, first you were introduced to the Crooked Man. Then next thing you know, we have the Toe Man. It's me. What can I say?
But before we get started on anything, last time we did an episode, I talked about Evil Dead Rise. And you guys haven't seen it yet, so I was doing my best not to spoil the movie for you. I told you my thoughts on it and how it was an okay movie, not great, not awful, but just kind of there. But you guys have seen it now. Both of you guys, I went to the theater. You took a chance to watch it. What do you guys think?
Well, there's a word for that, Chris, and I would call it mid. That's exactly what the Evil Dead Rise was to me. You know what? Let me tell you, that intro, though, as I sat down and it come on, and there's a scene like a cold open, and this is not really spoiling anything either, because you could actually watch this cold open online now. They posted the whole 10-minute intro, like from the
well, this time we'll spoil it, because last time it was spoiler free, so this time will be spoilers. And yeah, you're right, that cold open, the title opening sequence with the title on screen of Evil Dead Rise, that's one of the that's a really great fucking opening right there.
It's amazing, yeah. And I love the part where they were reading. What was the girl reading? Wuthering Heights. That's what it was. And she was sitting there like her friend wasn't feeling good, and then she walks in there, and then she starts like reading her book and checking on her, and as she starts reciting the words back, I don't know, there was something very chilling about that. I love that. But moving forward, I love the idea that this wasn't in a fucking cabin. This wasn't another, Evil Dead adaptation from 2013 that we got, which I was not a fan of. But keep in mind, I love the Evil Dead. I think we all do here, right, Mike? You like it too?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love it. Love it.
Sweet. So, I love the Evil Dead. The very first one. Loved Evil Dead 2. Army of Darkness is even great. Not a huge fan, like I said, of the 2013 adaptation. But this one, it was okay. I love the idea of like having a kind of like an apartment building in LA vibe going for it. It felt very like goopy because of that. But I kind of call this like one of those horror movies about a woman that's pissed off about having to do her laundry, because that's kind of like a big part of the movie. She's just so pissed about this laundry. And so she takes the laundry basket. She's like, if you guys don't want to do the laundry, I'm going to. And there's the elevator scene and all that too, which was really interesting. But yeah, I mean overall, there were some things that really I think what came down to the problem with this was they did such a good job on the gore. I'm very desensitized, just like you guys are. So I'm like, more gore, more gore. Where's all the blood? This is not bad at all. There was a cheese grater scene, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, more. And I was like, more of it. Come on, I just give me some more. But at the end of it, if you look at it, it's a very brutal and like terrifying, like weird film.
Well,
However,
with the gore, I
yeah,
think people were led a little bit too much on
Yeah,
that because the advertisements for it in articles and reviews and stuff was like this movie is extremely bloody and gory. They used over 72,000 buckets of blood. And then you get into the movie and there's the scene in the elevator where the entire elevator fills with blood. That's where that went to. So it's not
yeah.
stretched across the entire movie like the original film was. It's basically one sequence where they used the most gore. And
It's
yeah, the
it,
ending had quite a bit, but it's kind of like a
it's
lie,
not.
a little.
See,
yeah,
that's
it's
the
really like a
thing.
one and done.
Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Oh no, I just like kind of like piggybacking off of what Lax said. All that blood was really used in one scene. Um, and that's the same thing. I agree with you, Tyler, and I think we all mutually pretty much agree on this. I felt like this movie, the first time seeing it, just fell flat.
Mhm.
I had really high expectations for this. Um, and this might be a movie that I need to watch again, which I definitely will. But seeing the first time, expectations were set so high, um, and I don't know if I just had the problem with the main actress in it. Um, she kind of bothered me just the way, not as she's a bad actress in general. It's just the role she played. I don't feel like it fit her very well. I don't think she fulfilled her full potential in
Yeah,
this role.
it didn't feel like she was possessed by the Deadites. It felt like a
Right.
ghost possession movie or something.
It was like almost like a paranormal like activity movie in a way, but just better. I mean, than paranormal movies. But it just fell flat. And like I said, I mean, me being a huge Halloween lover, Halloween Ends. That's another movie that I had to watch two and three times to really like it, love it. And I'm not going to say I'm going to love this movie, but I might like it more watching it another time.
Well, so for me, the big thing was I see I didn't have a problem with the amount of gore it was in it because I mean, like obviously that if you guys
Same,
remember back
same.
to the elevator scene, it was clearly an homage to The Shining. I don't know if like
Yeah,
the director Lee Cronin. Not really. I had no idea who directed this. I had like no interest to even like really look them up or anything. But just looking as I review this, I actually directed Hole in the Ground for A24 back like 4 or 5 years ago. And that film also it was mid and you know it was written by Lee Cronin as well. And I think that the big thing is Lee Cronin's writing style. It has a lot of really great ideas, but both films kind of suffer from the same issues. Is they just really don't make a lot of fucking sense at the end of the day. I mean, I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So
So
let's just
the sequence with the elevator and the blood, it ended up being the best sequence in the entire movie because you have the references to, you said it's a reference to The Shining, but there's also the homage to Evil Dead 2
yeah.
because you have all of the people who have been killed in the hallway rise up and their eyes are the deadite eyes or whatever, and they're screaming dead by dawn, dead by dawn, dead by dawn. And that is a really cool sequence, tapped off with the elevator sequence and the whole blood spilling out everywhere, which leads to the ending of the movie, really, with the weirdness that happens there. But um, the movie itself has a lot of just odd things that don't make sense. Somebody pointed out in an article that I read that the kids find the records that has the incantation on the records, and it just so happens that the only person that found those was somebody who has a record player. What if the person who found them didn't have a record player? What if they were cassette tapes? What if they were, something else? It was just, it all added up and it was just too perfect of a situation to play out. like it did.
Dude, taking this a step further than that, because this is my biggest problem with the movie. Before we even start talking about the rest of it, let's go back to the very beginning after the Evil Dead Rise, the little scene where like they had the whole background and stuff. Between that and they actually get to like the elevator getting pissed off about doing laundry. The scene that happens in between this is the most batshit crazy thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I don't know, how they passed this off and was able to like get it okay with it. But just to review, they were in the middle of this parking garage, right? Okay, listen how bonkers this is. There is an earthquake that happens that opens up a very specifically located hole in this parking garage. You're never supposed to go into anything like this whenever there's an earthquake in California, especially. The main character goes over to this hole in the ground. Don't crawl in it. They start screaming at them and stuff. They go in it anyway. They get down there and perfectly in like this like mid form of like, just like weird bank, or what is that? What it was, like a bank? Like,
Yeah,
So
I
like
think it was
that,
about bank.
yeah, the apartment building,
Yeah.
like I guess there was like a mini city or something that was down there, and that whole area was built over top of that area. So that specific hotel, or not hotel, apartment complex was built over top of that bank.
listen how
Yeah.
crazy this is. So there was a fucking bank in the middle of the ground in LA that's underneath an old dilapidated apartment building. There was an earthquake that happens. There's a bunch of kids that go over, crawl into this old perfectly restored bank,
Yeah.
go inside the vault, and no, doesn't just go in the vault and look around like an explorer. They specifically go straight in there and they find the vinyl records. They're able to
Yeah.
get all the information, the Necronomicon, everything they would possibly need to bring the Deadites to bring it to all fruition, all this, the whole thing. And it's just like so weird they were specifically able to know that there was going to be an earthquake, go down there, find them, grab everything they possibly need, take it back, open it up, play it, know to do like the whole like little hand motion to spin the records to make it, actually legible. So just the premise of that and the idea that that was how they got there was absolute like just batshit crazy, right? Why is no one talking
Yeah,
about this? I've never heard one person
Yeah,
talk about this.
It's wild. I mean, it's just all the pieces fell just completely in order for this to match up way too perfectly. And shit doesn't happen like that in real life. I mean, I know it's a movie, but a lot of these things really, to me, I'm not going to say ruined the movie, but in a way it did. I don't know.
there
It
should have
did.
been a flashback sequence. So you could have had Bruce Campbell make a cameo appearance as Ash, and it would have been like a little black and white flashback where they're inside the bank and they're locking up the records and the Necronomicon. And he's like, "What we should do is build something over top of this and just pray that an earthquake doesn't happen." And then it cuts to the modern day
Yeah. That would be like Evil Dead 2, right? It'd be like a fun
because
like
it would have been kind of comical, like over the top funny, and that would have played homage to it. Like it would have been funny.
and this one was played a lot more serious than any of the other Evil Dead films, I would say. And it does have like these kind of like very like small comedic moments throughout, which I do appreciate. But let's just be honest, the little girl, like the kid, overall, I mean, she was never really in any danger throughout the whole thing. It's mostly just her like mischievously trying to like figure out what's going on and them like kind of like not
Yeah.
good guardians or whatever. But at the end of the day, I'm just like, would it have been better if they killed the kid? I don't know. It's just like this
I thought the same thing.
right? I'm like, just like kill the kid at this point. But
Yeah, it's like they were playing it safe. They were just like, "Hey, it's going to be in theaters. We can't have the little girl die. So everything that we do, she's going to be on the edge of almost dying, like four or five times, and then last second she's saved." And that's not how an Evil Dead movie works. Like Evil Dead, like you get close to a deadite, and boom, you're possessed.
Yeah.
exactly. And overall, just like I did like how I think I mentioned earlier how goopy it was, and I do love how that kind of like plays out in terms of like
I just like the fact that you just say the word goopy. Like
it's
it's just
goopy, right?
it's a
Okay, like
goopy.
the scene from Society, Brian using Society, where was the shunting scene.
The shunting scene, yes.
That's how the Evil Dead Rise felt during like this like moment from like the moment like the mom goes completely at her like rarest form and goes to the hallway and there's a fire in the kitchen and the cheese grater, it just felt very like wet. Something about it. It was just very like goopy.
Yeah, yeah, that's a perfect word, goopy. But yeah, like all the Deadites that are from the movie, I can't even remember what the reason was that they did this, but all the Deadites just come together and form this big like Deadite goopy monster.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like it has no form. It's almost like the Thing. It looks like something from the Thing, and it just chases after the two people at the end of the film, leading a very like it was almost comical. Like it was so over the top and just so out there that it was interesting and fun, but it didn't make any sense whatsoever. Like that doesn't happen in the other Evil Dead movies.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. I just like I watched that and I'm like, I feel like on paper they were like, this is gonna be great. There, this is gonna be a giant like dead eye. It's gonna be flowing around. It's gonna be like the monster movie we all want. We love it. And then the way it translates to screen, it's like this is kind of getting redundant. Like I'm feeling kind of bored. I don't know, but by the time they got to that very last scene with the big rolling dead eye and then the whole chase back and forth throughout the parking garage, I was kind of like getting a little. I mean, it was a good length film. I wasn't like necessarily bored throughout, but that was the moment I'm like, okay, we get it. You know what I mean? How many times
Yeah.
you like go after them? They literally had like 15, 20 near misses at that point. So
Yeah,
I feel like it really kind of exhausted itself in that last 10, 15 minutes. I also didn't, even though I loved the cold opening, I didn't necessarily love the way they ended it at all. I didn't really get that. I didn't really feel that. I really don't want to see that girl's story anymore. Like if there was like a sequel with her, I really am not like excited for that.
yeah, she was not an interesting character to at least not an interesting character to make the main person because it switches. It goes from the mom being the main character and then getting possessed and turning into a deadite, somewhat of a deadite, if you want to call it that, and then it switches tones completely and it takes the sister and she becomes the main character and it focuses on her, but she has no interesting subplot whatsoever. Her every one of her emotions, whether it be, scared, sad, happy, it's all the same tonally. So it doesn't cause any type of level of entertaining rising up or down or whatever. It's not a roller coaster of a ride. It's just like Mike said earlier, it's just flat. Like the
Yeah. It
reactions,
really is.
everything is just flat. And I think that's what hurt it the most is just there was no interest in anything. Nobody had a care for those characters.
I mean, yeah, it's
Yeah.
all comes down to writing. I think that the way it was shot was great. I think the execution of, I think the actors may have been doing kind of like a pretty decent job. But the thing is, I think that the material they were given wasn't cohesive enough to really stand on its own. And that was my biggest concern with the entire thing was it just felt like it was very, and the premise, like the idea, like the basic premise of this like happening inside this Los Angeles apartment complex. I love that idea. Get them out of
Yeah.
the woods for once and do something new. So I do respect Evil Dead Rise for kind of like it had the cabin too. Like they wanted like at the very beginning, the open like 10-minute cold opening, they gave us cabin. They gave us that and then
Yeah.
moved it on to something that was new. And I mean, you all know horror in 2023, it's moving to a new, generation. It's a
Yeah.
completely it's a brand new kind of like slate. They're wiping it clean. So I think that as looking at like Gen 2 of horror coming up, like for this new generation, it kind of like really does it got people talking, is what I would say. It definitely wasn't for us Evil Dead fans. I really wanted more from it, but was I like sorely disappointed by it? Not really. I thought it was fun. I had a good time.
Yeah. Would you end up giving this on the rating scale?
Uh, I would say 6 out of 10.
That's yeah.
Yeah.
That's I think that's exactly what I put was a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, and I was right down the middle. I gave it a 5, just because, like I said earlier, and like I said last episode, I didn't really know how to feel after watching it. I literally like the movie ended, and I said, I think I need to watch this again. Like as soon as the movie, like the credits hit, I was like, I need to watch it again because I don't really know how I feel about it. It's not awful, it's not great, it's in between, and that's why I give it a 5.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that that's something that a lot of people feel with that because it's just like 10 minutes go by and you're like, this is great, this is what we want, this is exactly what an Evil Dead film should be. And the next 10 minutes go and you're like, wait, this is kind of like really boring character development. And the next 10 minutes comes, you're like, wait, there's Deadites, you know what I mean? It's just like, but how? At what cost?
Man, if the whole movie would have, if that hallway scene and elevator scene would have been the start of the film, and then it would have went that way the entire time, like the entire hour and a half, then it would have been a freaking amazing movie.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so that is Evil Dead Rise. I am excited to see what happens next. I hopefully, I mean, I'm also very excited to see what Lee Cronin does, because I think that that director has potential. I really do. So I'll keep that on my radar as well. But aside from that, what else did you guys get around to watching?
I've been kind of vacant with watching a lot this time around. Um, I'm trying to think what we have watched. What was that scary movie that we watched?
It's been a last episode too. So
me and my daughter rewatched. What was it called? Sick. That kind of came out here on Peacock not too long ago.
oh, you rewatched that?
Yeah, Remy never saw that, and then we rewatched that together, and she really enjoyed it. That's a good flick. That's not a bad movie. I really enjoyed that movie.
Kevin Williamson, so it follows a very formulaic kind of, serial killer formula. But it's fun. Yeah, it's great. I mean, I loved it. Did you ever see it, Chris?
I still haven't seen it yet. No.
Oh man, you need to watch that.
Isn't it like 70? It's like 75 minutes or something.
It's quick. It's really fast, and it's bam. You kind of get it at the start and keeps going. It's good.
Yeah, I got it saved as on my watch list because on a few episodes, I can't remember how many episodes it was, but one episode you had mentioned it of watching it, and I think Tyler, you and Tyler both did like a little mini review of it, and you
That's
guys
right.
recommended it for me, but I put it on my watch list, but I still haven't. I have like 400 movies on my watch list.
Yeah. No, Chris doesn't like pandemic movies. He doesn't like
Yeah.
But I think we're kind of over those. I mean, they came out from like 2022 to 2023, and now I feel like slowly they're kind of like migrating away from it. So it was a very short-lived subgenre. Can we call it pandemic movies? Maybe in the same way we could call like Outbreak or something, a pandemic movie. Or remember Contagion? I think it's funny whenever, I mean, there's nothing funny about COVID, but just saying, like, we're talking about pandemic films. I think it's kind of funny that whenever lockdown happened back in 2020, what was it? It was Contagion. There was that like Gwyneth Paltrow film called Contagion that came out back in like 2013 or 2012, and it went out of print, and people were buying that online for like $90 just so they could watch it during COVID lockdown. That way they can look back and say, hey, are we living in Contagion right now? So yeah, I think that was kind of like, the ultimate surrealist horror kind of thing. But I did get around. I mean, and again, that's a good pick, Mike. I think that's awesome you rewatched that, because I did enjoy it quite a bit. It had some issues.
Yeah.
It was
Oh
good.
yeah.
But
I agree.
a lot of our all our audience here loves horror. A24 is producing some excellent horror. And what I've watched this last couple weeks has been a TV show that not necessarily you could call horror, but it's like my favorite thing I've watched this year. I'm telling you. And it's called Beef. It's actually directed. It's very rooted in like Japanese kind of like culture in a way, because the director writer is Japanese, but it's basically this dark horror-y comedy. It's mostly comedy, like a dark comedy, but it's basically about these two people who almost have like a road rage incident at the very beginning of the show. And the setup basically is he's having a bad day, she's having a bad day. They get pissed off at each other because they like cut one another off. And then they get this full-fledged like chase scene back and forth to like get to each other. And all they remember is each other's license plate numbers. And it's funny because basically the entire first episode is just them like trying to hunt down each other. And of course, there's like a lot of new like stakes and stuff that gets introduced to that as well. and there's a lot of like extra like things happening off to the side, like marriages and relationships and all that. But basically, it's just them trying to get back at each other, and it gets fucking crazy ass bonkers. It's so fun. And I can't recommend it enough. It's hilarious. Like at one point, the guy goes to the girl's house and pretends to be a contractor. And he goes in there and she's like, yeah, we did this, we did that to the house, and we just remodeled the bathroom. And he's like, oh, well, your contractor, messed this up and messed that up about it. And he's like, do you have a bathroom that I could use? And she's like, yeah, just use that one that we just remodeled. And he goes in there and closes the door and he pisses all over her bathroom. And then like it's so funny because he walks out and says, okay, well, thank you for the tour. I have to get going. And she's like, what's going on? And she opens up the bathroom door and he's just like pissed all over the bathroom. And she's like runs out there, and then like it's goofy, it's fun. It's like 10 episodes. I haven't finished it yet, but I'm telling you, it gets really kind of like surreal. It gets really, it has comedy, it has a lot of like kind of like really, really, really good themes going throughout this. And I think that it's definitely going to be one of those TV series to be remembered. And it's on Netflix too. So I would definitely
check that out.
for sure. Yeah. All it takes is that first episode and you're hooked. It's amazing. It really is. And again, it's A24, so not necessarily, I can't call this horror, but again, it's like my favorite thing I've watched this year. And a lot of people who do listen to the podcast, I think would absolutely like checking this out. It's worth it for sure. That is Beef.
Beef.
Yeah, also it's kind of funny too because it's kind of, they play off of that, and they have like these like pictures of raw meat as the title card that comes up, but it's not about that at all. It's about them having beef with each other. I just think it's all right. You're up, Chris. What you got?
I did another rewatch because same as you guys with toward this time of year with work, and then my daughter's in school with her end of school year activities and all of that. There hasn't been much time to really sit down and watch the stuff that I really want to watch, but I did do a rewatch the other day. I watched Jeepers Creepers again for the 20th time or whatever. And man, this movie still holds up. It's still really, really good. The opening sequence with the car chase is always interesting. The the discovery of the creature morphing into different parts throughout the movie when he learns that he has wings, all this stuff that happens throughout is still interesting. Like every time I see it happen, I'm just like, man, I can't believe that happened. I can't believe that happened. I can't believe that happened. And the scene with the creeper walks in at the nighttime sequence with the old lady with the cats, and she has like the shotgun and everything,
Oh yeah.
and he looks like the scarecrow, and he's standing outside the house. That's still a really creepy scene, man. And anytime I try to put myself into a character in a movie, and I would put myself, at the location of the house, and if I was there and looking out and saw what looked like a scarecrow, and then all of a sudden it's gone, and I know something's been chasing me, and I don't know what it is. I mean, I'd be terrified. It's really, really cool, really fun.
I have not watched that since I've been like 7 years old. I'll be honest, I don't remember anything besides like tiny little fragments of that.
I
But
remember watching it in theaters when it first came out, and this was what 2001 was that when it came out?
mhm.
Yeah, so I was what
Oh, Chris is gonna
14,
age himself.
14, 15 years old when that movie came out. Yeah. And I remember going to the theaters and watching that with a group of friends and just loving it to see how all my friends were terrified of this movie. They were actually screaming at scenes in the movie. They were jumping, they were screaming, they were legitimately scared. And here I am, the same age as them, and these guys are much bigger than I was. And I'm just sitting here smiling like at how entertaining and how fun it is. And it was just awesome. It was a great experience I had in theaters watching it for the first time.
You really don't get. I don't know if you guys feel this way. I don't know if it's where we're getting older or if it just is like streaming or desensitization. I don't know what it is, but it doesn't feel the same in having a theater experience with like the audience anymore. Have you guys noticed that? Like back in like
Yeah.
it was like a moment from like 2007 or 8 and before, if you went to the theater, it was a completely different vibe than you have now. Also, like the
It de-
architecture in there kind of feels different. It just doesn't feel the same.
yeah, it
Very
depends
true.
on the type of movie that you're watching too. Because if I'm watching like a legit scary film, like a paranormal ghost movie, I don't want people to make noise during the entire thing. I want it to be like dead silence. So if somebody gets scared or whatever and they scream, it takes me out of the movie. But if a movie is really fun and entertaining, there's, blood and gore flying everywhere and, chainsaws revving up and people getting killed and people are joking around at certain dialogue or certain scenes or certain death scenes and stuff. And, they're laughing or they're shouting stuff at the screen. It does make it really fun. It just depends on how the audience reacts to stuff. And it can be really good or really bad.
I mean, yeah,
Agree.
type of movie for sure, 100%. Because if you have like one of those movies that you really like, you're looking forward to, and it's very serious and straightforward, like very hardcore horror. It's not goopy, for example. It's down. You want to watch it. You want to like really have this like attentive kind of look, especially like if it's one of those like horror films that's very quick, like witty kind of horror films that like moves quickly. You don't want to be interrupted. But if it's like one of those, like for example, Evil Dead Rise, if I had a theater that wasn't just like a weird couple that was just in there with us, is all it was. It would have been fun with an audience. I think it's like one of those audience type films.
Can I just take the time to say that we need to make a T-shirt from the big morphed Evil Dead blob at the end of the film, and just have a T-shirt with that in the center of it, and just say "Goopy Horror."
Yes,
God, that's
you know
great.
what? We need to trademark this right now. We are now going to dub it Goopy Horror. There's gonna be
Goopy
whole-
Horror.
Goopy horror. We gotta
I'm
get
gonna
a
go to
patent.
Letterbox right now and make a whole entire list of every Goopy horror film I would consider extra goopy, and that's
Yep. Hashtag Goopy Horror.
it for sure. But yeah, I mean, I do need to get around to watching. I went through this phase. I mean, we all know about Victor Salva, the director.
Yeah.
Separating the art from the
Yeah.
artist. Obviously, he went to prison for doing things. And there was a moment where I was like, I'll never watch Jeepers Creepers again as long as like I live. I could never separate that. But now it's been, a couple of years. I'm kind of like re-looking at my viewpoint of this. And I think that I definitely want to revisit the film now because I barely remember, because I remember being scared by it. I remember like I used to go to my grandma's house and it would come on TV and I would watch like little parts of it, and I would remember like it actually scared me. Like it was pretty like it was fun. So I really do need to sit down and rewatch that. And I think that I'm willing to give it a shot. I'm willing to separate the art from the artist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
What else do y'all watch? Anything else?
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Ready to
Yeah.
battle.
Let's battle.
All right.
Yeah. Let's go ahead. Well, this will be a little bit, probably a shorter episode, but why not? Cool.
Might as well. All right. We'll take a quick break and we will be right back for the battle. All right, guys, welcome back. We are ready to battle here. 3 films will enter, 1 film will leave. This is going to be the comedy horror battle. And I guess there's something that I've been really looking forward to talking about, and that's going to be Mike's pick. So let's talk about Mike's pick. Go ahead.
Right. All right. So I chose Cocaine Bear, and
I just love the title.
The title itself is like appealing. You're like, well, okay, I got to know what happens, So besides this being inspired by true events, which is shocking. So let me start off with that. This was based. It was a true story, or based on true events. I think it was in the 80s that a drug runner plane crashed and dropped. I mean, a massive amount of cocaine over a forest, and I think it was in maybe Georgia, if I'm not mistaken. But massive amount of cocaine in a.
It would probably just be enough to hold me over for a couple hours.
I mean, listen, I'm from the West End of Huntington, maybe a day. But a good weekend party, But anyways, this bear gets a hold of this cocaine and eats it. I mean, I forgot how many pounds it was. I mean, enough to kill a small community. But the cocaine, or the bear itself, I mean, just gets this burst of energy and anger. And I mean, a bear's already like angry. So like, and it just goes on this absolute tear in the forest, and there's hikers and um, it what I appreciate about this phone, it doesn't take long, or what I appreciate about this movie, it does not take long to start off. And I mean, opening scene, it's like about these hikers and this. I think it's the woman hiker just gets absolutely mauled by this bear. I mean, just taken off and just torn apart. And it's a bloody fun mess, I feel. But in regards to the opening scene, it falls flat in some areas. It hits a slow spot throughout the movie, like kind of about 30% into the movie, 40% in the movie, kind of not really halfway through the movie. It kind of gets boring. And
Yeah, but that opening scene though is I was laughing my ass off because you have that bear, like it just killed or attacked two people. And then
yeah,
the title sequence of Cocaine Bear appears and a butterfly floats by and the bear's like goes from its rage to
yeah,
like just happiness in a matter of seconds. It's like
like the bear has ADD plus hyped up on cocaine. It's great.
yeah.
Um, but there's a scene in this movie that I absolutely laughed my ass off so much. But then again, I'm like, holy shit! So this woman gets put into an ambulance, and the bear jumps mid-air in slow motion and gets. I think he doesn't he get into the ambulance or knocks into the ambulance, something like that.
Yeah.
And the woman falls out of the back, and she's in a stretcher, all like strapped down, so she has no control to put her arms up or anything. And she falls, and the ambulance is like driving, let's say 40 miles per hour, and she falls out the back, and she just skids. Her body, her face just skids on the ground, and you can hear it. It's like, and that's her skin, and like I don't know why, but I laughed so fucking hard watching this woman's death getting dragged on the street. Um, but back to I'm jumping around because it's a movie that doesn't make sense. It's just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And there's really
Yeah.
there's really no way you can go in this movie and give a full detailed storyline. But I will tell you this: the CGI for the bear is actually shockingly good at times. I'm not saying all the time through the movie, but it's pretty good for what it's worth. The gore is actually, to me, I thought it was impressive. But there were some things that I didn't like. There was a scene where, and I think Lax and I talked about this, where the kids found the cocaine laying in the woods and they tried it. They either tasted it or they snorted it. They did something.
They took a spoonful of cocaine.
Right.
We're talking about
Right.
what, like 12-year-old kids or younger than that. And it was a spoonful of cocaine that they put in their mouth. Yeah, they spit it out because they didn't like the taste and it was like powdery. But I mean, that would have had an effect on them, like a big effect.
And nothing.
And they had no reaction to it whatsoever. That was the only complaint. But we're talking about a movie called Cocaine Bear. Like,
Exactly. And nothing, like I said, nothing makes sense. And there's also a scene where they're like running from this bear, and they're like, get under the gazebo. And the one dude's like, "What's a gazebo?" And I laughed so hard on that.
Okay, so there's a group of gang members that attack these people who are looking for the drugs. The people who are looking for the drugs obviously are like, they're hardcore. They got their guns and everything. They're in gangs. But these young teenagers who are in this gang like jump these guys, and they get the crap beat out of them by them. And so the big druggies kidnap the main gang leader, the main teenager gang, and forces him to take them to the gazebo. And this kid that plays him is really freaking hilarious, by the way.
Yeah.
And while they're at the gazebo, the bear shows up, and they're like, "What do we do?" And they're like, "Play dead." And like the teenager just drops to the ground immediately and just like flops down. And the bear goes over and sits on top of the other guy.
Top of it.
And he's like, we got to get this. She's sitting on top of me. And they're like, how do you know it's a she? He goes, you hear him mumble, her vagina's in my face. It's like the funniest thing. I laughed
But
so hard at
I
that
didn't get
scene.
that because the vagina was not in his face.
I know.
I'm
I think
like,
it was just like the joke was.
it was like
Yeah.
I
snug
don't
in
know.
the
I think
armpit or something.
it was just funny to say, mumbled underneath the bear, and even though it didn't make any sense, it was still fucking
It
hilarious
was,
to me.
and I mean, just a quick. If you're just going in this and you haven't seen any like trailers for it at all, which I'm sure everybody now has seen it, but overall, Cocaine Bear to me is a entertaining, ridiculous film that delivers it delivers one promise. It delivers a cocaine fueled bear on a killing spree, and it's entertaining. You're not going to get much of a storyline other than that. It is definitely worth watching. It's just some mindless fun. There's nothing really else to it. It's just it's a fun watch. It's a cool. You can watch it with a group of people and laugh your asses off. And I definitely think it's worth the watch. Um, but then again, it is a movie, so like overall, it falls short on a lot of pieces. There are some really slow spots in the movie. There's some spots in the movie that does not make sense. But then again, we're talking about a bear on cocaine, so there's a lot of shit
Or
that's
we
not going
could
to make
call
sense.
him Pablo Escobar.
That's good. That's good. That's good.
How long were you waiting to say that?
I know. I was like, okay. I know where we're going with this. I was just like, yeah, it's Pablo Escobar. But no, it's like,
And
you know what it reminds me of? It's like one of those films that like Asylum would do or like Sci-Fi Channel would do. And it was like, Sharknado, for example. And it's just like they didn't give them a lot of money to make that. So this is like, I don't know if you guys ever felt this way, but growing up, I was like, what if they would just give like an Asylum film or like some like fucking like Sharknado film, like a big budget and release it everywhere? And this was like, this is what we were waiting for. We get Cocaine Bear.
yeah,
I think they give it like $35 million. And I actually watched this one theory online. And it was kind of interesting because if you guys noticed, like the film, even though it was mostly in daylight, felt very dark. And they said that, it's very easy to hide imperfections in CGI if the film kind of looks darker. So even if it's daylight and it looks a little bit darker, if you make CGI happen, and it's some kind of like a weird technical thing, but it makes the CGI look better, is what I'm trying to say. And Pablo Escobar looked pretty good, honestly. And
yeah.
I think it's because it had that kind of like Crush Blacks. But now this is Elizabeth Banks directing this, which okay, I'm not like trying to hate on Elizabeth Banks, but let's just say, Pitch Perfect. She directed that. She directed Charlie's Angels remake. So, you have these kind of like goofy kind of like films. And then you have Cocaine Bear. She's kind of a great fit. I'm not trying to hate on her, but again, Bear on the screen, good, good. Bear off the screen, bad. No,
Yeah,
no, no.
yeah.
Yeah,
It does
just
fall
bear
short.
with us.
Yeah, just bear with us until the bear comes out to do the screen.
So
And
the
Pablo
movie,
Escobar was great though.
yeah, the movie, it's really strange because it gets better as the movie goes along. Like
Yeah,
every 10 minutes, the movie gets better than the previous 10 minutes, and it gets funnier every 10 minutes. And it almost plays out like the last 30 minutes of the movie plays out like a Spielbergian like adventure film for kids.
Dude, you want to
yeah,
know why? Because this obviously happened back in the 80s. And Cocaine Bear being that kind of like the characters were written kind of like E.T. Like fuck. I mean, like we're not like E.T. is the bear at this point, and it felt
yeah.
very like 80s, like you said, adventure type at the end. And I got that. I got that too. I was gonna mention it because I think that that's kind of what it was trying to do. It was trying to make an 80s throwback film.
I will tell you
Anyway,
this.
sorry, go ahead.
I love Isaiah Whitlock. I just love the way the guy talks. I think he played the detective in the Cocaine Bear. It's just his dry voice. Like he's just like, well, guys, there's a bear out there and we got to find it. It's just like, I don't know why I love that guy's voice. It's like kind of calm, but and then also, what is it? is it Ice Cube's son or
Wait, which
is it
one?
some O'Shea Jackson Jr.?
I
Isn't
didn't.
he like?
Oh
I'm
yeah,
pretty sure
Ice
he's
Cube. So okay, sorry.
yeah Ice Cube's son. So like,
He's in there, yeah.
and then yeah, and like
Yeah.
he
Ice Chip.
I Ice Chip. I like him as an actor,
Is it because he's a chip off
but
the block? Sorry.
um, but overall, it's just a really fun. You can watch this movie sober. You can watch this movie having a party, having some drinks. No matter what, sober or not sober, you're going to laugh your ass off in some of these and throughout this movie. Uh, it's fun, but it ends there. It's not great. It's not it's not terrible. It's laughable. So my overall rating on the movie that I picked, it could have been a lot better. But then again, I've seen a lot of movies trying to go this way and be funny, somewhat horror adventurous, comical. Um, but I gave this movie a what did I give this movie? I think I gave it a 6. Yeah. So we haven't watched this movie for so long.
So it went up an extra point
Yeah.
because of the cocaine.
So
Are
I gave
you
this
on
movie a
cocaine
6.
right now, Mike?
I might mind your own fucking business. Maybe I am. But I gave this movie
Cocaine,
a
Mike.
6.
I mean, this movie
A
to me,
6.
it felt straight comedy. And
Yeah.
I know like where it kind of falls in the horror category is you look back at these like animal attacks films, and it's trying to be like an animal attacks film, but it's obviously called Cocaine Bear, so it's more comedy than anything. So
Yeah.
to me, I just got straight comedy, and I'm craving. I don't know about y'all, but I am craving a good comedy. There's not been a good comedy that's come out in a very long time, especially a horror comedy. So the fact that this even exists, the fact that it was greenlit, the fact that they gave it $35 million, the fact that they had a fucking bear on cocaine, the fact they released this in like 3,000 theaters, it's absolutely insane. And I think that's great. Did I love it? No, I absolutely did not like it at all. Did I absolutely hate it though? Not really. I mean, I definitely didn't like it as much as Evil Dead Rise, which also kind of has those weird kind of like goofy moments in it too. It's not goopy, but it's goofy, Chris. I would give it like I'm gonna give it a 5. I would say it's right in the center for me. And again, bear on the screen, good. Bear off the screen, bad. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm one of those people where I love a good killer bear movie, but taken serious. This one, like you said, was a lot more funny, a lot more comical aspect from it. It's 99% comedy, 1% horror because of the gore. The gore is the only thing that makes it a horror film whatsoever. And I love when they use real bears and when they use like men in suit bears. Even though that the CG bear was actually really well done, it looked like a really good version of a bear. But a part of me, my nostalgic feeling, my love for those type of B movies, was very much missing that real life bear or man in suit bear. And also, like I said, the movie got better as it went along. So the first half of the movie wasn't as good as the last half. Um, I would recommend the movie. I think it was pretty funny. I laughed out loud 3 or 4 different times. It was enjoyable, wasn't great, wasn't awful, but I do recommend it to a lot of people. So I would give it a 6.
You have to keep in mind too that the film it was made for like the masses. Like when the moment they said, "Hey, we're making Cocaine Bear," they could have said, "Hey, this would be a sci-fi movie. This could be an Asylum style film, or we could have released it with RLJE Entertainment and just do like a VOD release on Shutter." But this was like, I mean, it's kind of like bonkers to me that this actually exists. You know what I mean? Like in theaters, and the fact that like
Yeah.
Ray Liotta was in it as well, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. But yeah, I mean, that's where its downfall is that I think it had a little bit too much money, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. What did you give your score, Tyler? Mike?
6.
6. So you got a total of 17 for Cocaine Bear.
Not a bad start.
No, 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 no.
All right, so I'll jump in and we'll move on to my pick for a horror comedy. And I went with the wonderful Idle Hands, and this was this 99? Did this come out in 99? I can't remember the date that it
Came
came
out
out.
in 99.
99.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to read the back of the box here. I got the DVD here from Columbia TriStar Pictures. It says the devil will find work for idle hands to do, but what happens when he chooses the laziest teen slacker in the world to do his dirty work? Anton Tobias is a surfing, junk food munching, couch potato burnout who can't control his murderous impulses of his recently possessed hand. With the help of his zombified buddies, Anton's got to stop the rampaging devil appendage before it takes total control of his life and ruins his chance that he has with the class hottie. So this movie, I had watched it a long time ago when it first came out. And to be honest, I may have seen this in the movie theaters. I cannot remember to save my life if I watched it in theaters or not, because I think it's because I've watched it so many times. I rented this back in the day a lot from the video store, and it plays off like, and like how Evil Dead 2 has the possessed hand. I think that's what attracted me to it the most was, hey, another movie where somebody gets their hand cut off and hand runs around and kills people. But I'm also a fan of movies that inanimate objects or the killers or something like that is something else is killing people besides, a person. And that's what I really enjoyed about the movie. But Anton Tobias is played by Devon Sawa, and the movie starts off with him in his or his parents at his house. They are laying in the bed. They're getting ready for bed to go to sleep, and they turn the lights off and they look up and there's a message on the ceiling that says, "I'm under the bed." So they freak out. They go to check out. There's sounds coming from downstairs. They go to check it out. Ultimately, they end up getting killed by an unknown presence. Cut to the modern time or to the next day of Anton, where he is a complete slacker. Him and his friends, one played by Seth Green, and right off the bat, if it's got Seth Green in it, it's going to be comical. He's always funny and everything. But he doesn't know he's the killer, which you find out. Obviously, he is the killer based off within the first 10 minutes. They kind of give you every little description that he's the killer. I don't even know where to begin with this movie because I love so much of this film. Ultimately, he gets the devil itself possesses a slacker, which is him. It cuts his hand off because he doesn't want to kill people anymore. And the hand goes by itself in its own power, crawls around and murders people. And it does it in hilarious ways. It's a very over the top movie. And I ultimately have a lot of fun with this film, a lot of nostalgic. I haven't seen it in probably 15 years or so. And I actually really enjoyed this film.
I mean, yeah, it's like a very early stoner comedy. That's what I loved about it so much is that you kind of watch it and Devon Sawa, he does absolutely fantastic, and it's crazy that he didn't continue on to do more stoner kind of comedies. He played the role so well. I'm surprised he wasn't like more like on a hot list at the time for just like Seth Green or something. Because he really pulled it off. But we have Jessica Alba, fantastic. Mike absolutely loves Jessica Alba.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's great. Devon Sawa, I love every single thing that this tried to do, and it's crazy to know that it's criminally like underseen. Like no one talks about this. And it's really it's very good. It's very solid. I think it was great. Yeah.
I
See,
love this.
I'm going to be the one that stands out in this. I did not like it as much as you guys. I thought the buddies, the stoner buddies were done. What I like them. I thought they were really funny. I thought the dude carrying his head around was pretty comical. But and I know this was all about the stoners, slackers, but Devin character to me was just over the top. Did not enjoy it. I just thought he was too much. The only thing that made this movie was Jessica Alba. She was just beyond, just, she's not ugly. Okay, let's just put it that way.
I can't deal with it. Oh, no.
But now I have not seen this though until we watched it. I've never seen
no
this
one,
movie.
dude. No one has it's
I'm
underseen.
And maybe I think I would have probably liked this though if I would have seen it when it come out in 95.
99.
So, or 99. So 99. So maybe if I would have seen this in like 2000 or maybe a few years after it came out, I would have probably really enjoyed it because, hey, I was a little bit of a stoner myself. So like I would have probably liked it. But I don't know. I thought the main character, I know he's a popular actor back in the day. Um, didn't like his role. Thought he tried too hard. The hand was just a what it's like a souped up version from Adam's Family hand, just the chaotic, murderous. You know,
I
I
get
it, like I said, I didn't love it, didn't hate it. It was one of those movies. I did laugh a few times. There were some like pretty cool parts in the movie, but the best thing about the movie was Jessica Alba.
I always remember something about the movie when I watched it as growing up. Uh, there's one scene that stood out to me when Seth Green's character is they're in the kitchen and they're looking for items to cut the hand off with, and he's grabbing the knife and trying to stab around and everything. But Seth Green's character grabs like the turkey cutter or whatever that thing is, and he it's plugged in. He turns it on, and he's like, look at me, I'm Leatherface." And just watch. I think it was one of the first movies I watched that referenced other horror films because well, besides Scream, obviously, but it was just one of those few films that other movies like other horror films existed in the world of that film. And whenever they referenced that, I always remembered that scene, and it just stuck out for me. And then plus he throws the freaking hand in the microwave, and it explodes in the microwave, and then they toss a burrito in and eat the burrito. I just thought that was funny.
And I mean, it does. It came out. Mike, something else you have to consider. Think about the days that this came out. So, like 1999, we have Scream. When was that? Like 96, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we have Scream 96. It's sandwiched in. There's Cherry Falls in 2000 on the other end of this. We have these 90s, early 2000s style of like, I guess it's like kind of like what Chris said, self-referential style of horror. And Scream takes place with like a bunch of like uber like film nerds. Essentially Cherry Falls kind of like, kind of pokes fun in a meta way at the, virgin kind of like stigma behind horror movies. So we have like these like we have films kind of like coming out that's more aware of the tropes of horror. And I think the Idle Hands kind of like, maybe just like you mentioned, like, maybe it did take some like ideas from the Addams Family, and then the success mixed with like, Scream and like understanding like where is horror today. And like, let's just make a stoner comedy thrown in with some absolute, fun, like horror-y kind of moments, and we'll bank off the fact that Scream was an absolute like fucking crazy ass success. And
Yeah.
by this point there was what, two Screams going on three. So like it's just like I think that it fit and it made sense to make this film. I think it did everything it needed to do. I don't know why it didn't do well. It really had
It was a box office failure. I mean, I think it spent like what was it, 30 some $1 million to
it's like a
make the movie,
$30 million budget, yeah.
and
And
it only made back roughly $4 million back at theaters. So it
mm,
was definitely a bomb. But they went all out for this movie. They really did. I mean, they got what was the band Offspring. They got the Offspring to perform in the movie. Like there's an actual scene with the movie, and the hand kills the lead singer of Offspring on stage at a party, which again they go all out for because every horror film from like the 80s, they always try to, at least the high school scene movies, there's always that party, and the kids have to go up to the end of the movie to where the big party happens, and then everybody at the party
yep,
dies, like like Carrie did in the 70s.
absolutely.
And it did that. It played that. There's that big Halloween dance party for school, and it leads to one of the funniest moments in the movie, at least for me. So Seth Green's character and the other character, his character name is Penub, but I don't know what the actor that plays him. But they fall, or he falls in love with this girl and goes to the dance with this girl, but he's dead, remember? So he's basically a zombie, and the girl doesn't really know that, and he's trying to get it on with this girl the entire time they're at the dance. And the girl is running from the severed hand. it chases him through like an air duct, and at the end of the air duct is this giant fan that's going around in circles, and they stop the fan from spinning by putting a shoe in the side of it to keep it from spinning, and they're trying to like use a rope to climb down through the vent or through the fan, and the hand knocks the shoe out from the fan, and it starts spinning fast again, and it shoots her up through the fan and chops her up into big pieces, and blood flies everywhere. And Penub and Seth Green's character, when they are coming looking for her, they're climbing through the vent, and they come to all the blood and everything. And he was like, "Oh man, we got to go back." It's like, "Yeah, I was really hoping to get a piece of her tonight." And he goes, "Oh, well, if you want a piece of her, we can go back and get one." Like, I don't know why, but that scene cracks me up every time. I laugh.
Honestly, yeah.
I
I
laughed that
didn't
so
have
much.
such like I wasn't like so like I didn't have a response to that, but now you're like explaining it in the way the film kind of is set up. It's a perfect joke. Doesn't it feel like one of those like very like MTV style films?
Yes,
Feels very
yes, yeah.
1999. It's like very
Yeah,
MTV feeling.
and you even have a sequence. One of the coolest sequence too. There's a character or there's an actor named Seth. Oh my gosh, Seth Wallen or Whalen. He was in like People Under the Stairs. Um, but he is playing a cop in this scene, and he goes to Anton Tobias' house. Sean Whalen, that's it. Sorry, Sean Whalen
Yeah,
is the
okay.
guy's
So I
name.
was yeah,
He plays one of the cops, and Anton's character is watching MTV, and he's watching Rob Zombie's Dracula music video, and it's like blasting through the house, and the cops come to find him, and that's whenever Anton does his like actual start to killing everybody, kills the cops and stuff, and it's a really cool scene. That's one scene I always remember too. Like anytime anybody mentions Idle Hands, I remember the scene of him watching Rob Zombie's Dracula music video in the film.
yeah, I think that's a very memorable moment. And that's something I loved about this because you have to understand I kind of like I was just coming in to like really digging like culture of like horror, culture of music, MTV, the whole Surge Soda kit kind of thing. That feeling of like the 1990s and then the films that surround it with like I said, Cherry Falls, we have Scream, all these kind of like self-referential slashers mixed with that concept of kind of like being a very MTV filling kind of time. I'm trying to like encapsulate all this into one. I'm trying to like find the words for it, but it's hard to even describe unless you were kind of like alive during the time. You guys know what I'm talking about, but and hopefully like the listeners can
Hmm.
pick this up too because it's a very specific feeling that this movie gives me. And it makes me remember everything that I loved about kind of like 90s horror moving into the early 2000s and the way television was at the time as well. And it has this like whenever I think nostalgia, a lot of people may think back to like 80s horror. And I did have a lot of that too, like growing up with 80s horror. But this to me is kind of like my nostalgia. It's just like I watch this, I feel this sense of like growing up, loving horror, loving like, kicking back and watching finding something on TV that I'm not supposed to be watching that I watch anyway when my parents are asleep. You know what I mean? It gives that
Yeah.
feeling. It has a very fun, laid back, chill. We're not like really focusing on like the story too much. It's just a fun overall arching film. And like I said, Devon Sawa fucking kills it. Jessica Alba is as great as ever. Seth Green, we all know Seth Green. So again, I mean, I really did like it. I know that my score is not gonna be. It's definitely not a perfect film. I don't want to say like, hey, I'm gonna give this a 10 out of 10 because I do see a lot of negatives to it, and obviously, it's far from perfect, but it still has that feeling of nostalgia. So I gave it an extra like point or two just for that reason. But I think Chris, I think you're like probably one, and there's like I know this isn't one of your favorite movies of all time, but I feel like you're like one of the biggest fans of Idle Hands just because it's so underseen. The way like you responded to it and the way I responded to it, I think that's a lot of people who love this film. I think that's how they feel about it. You know what I mean? Like that's what makes it.
Well, I do really love this movie. I think it's a lot of fun, and I think maybe the nostalgic of me watching it as many times as I did growing up has a big part of that. But if you were to put like a list of like my favorite like top 50 horror films, it doesn't even make that list because like you said, it's not a great movie. It is a
Right.
lot of fun, but it's not that great of a film. I have a lot of nostalgic memories watching the movie, and there was a lot of moments in the movie that when they happened, I kept waiting for them to happen. I remember the opening scene where Anton's parents goes, or where Anton's parents get killed, and then he wakes up the next morning. He's walking through the house, and all of a sudden my mind was like cat licking an eyeball. Like I just kept saying that. I was like, oh, if there's something with the cat licking an eyeball. And then, sure enough, they show the scene where the cat starts licking the eyeball on the floor, and Devon Sawa's character is like oblivious to everything around him and has no clue what's going on. And it was just those little weird, like nostalgic memories I had that made me, re-like the movie again. And I used to give this movie a 9 out of 10. I even told you guys that I used to give this movie a 9 out of 10. But ultimately, I think with just the way that I watched it this time, it's nowhere near as fun as it used to be as a kid. But I still give it a high rating, and it's based off nostalgic factor alone and just fun of a film. I gave it an 8. I
Hey,
gave it an 8.
that's actually very, very good. And it's now available. I think Scream Factory put it out, so hopefully it's getting rediscovered a little bit. But I'm almost positive that Scream Factory, I mean, not a lot of people's bought that. It seems to be a
Like, yeah, I got the DVD still. I haven't bought the
Chris,
Blu-ray
go
yet.
out there and buy. Come on, you need to buy the Blu-ray. Come on, they haven't sold any copies. Like no one's bought this.
They won't.
I want to hear what you think. What's your score?
Mine.
Yeah, because we have an 8 out of
Um,
10. I know you didn't like it near as much. I hope that
I,
you're coming around to it.
um, I'm kind of stuck. It's like in between for me. Didn't absolutely hate it. Definitely didn't love it. Would I probably watch it again? Maybe if it was on TV. I wouldn't go like purposely like stream it or rent it or buy it. But
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't either. I mean, it's one of
I
those
mean,
you want to watch like a once every 10 years or something.
yeah, like if it's on TV for like a Halloween special or something, like I might watch. I would watch it. I would not watch it, but I gave it a 5. I gave it a 5,
Oh, oh,
Wow.
and it got 4 points.
what?
It got 4 points for Jessica Alba, and the other ones for the whole movie, the movie in general, the movie in general.
No, I enjoyed it way much. English, Tyler, English. I enjoyed it way more than I thought I would, and it's surprising probably to a lot of people because it's not a film that I necessarily would love. It seems like, but I gave it a 7 out of 10. I mean, I went in there thinking I was going to give it like a 4 or 5 because I had seen parts of it before and I thought it was okay, but I was like, it's a little wonky. It's whatever. It's not great at all. And watching it this time, something happened. I don't know if I'm on this like weird kick because I watched Biozombie and it had this very 90s video store kind of feel to it too. And this kind of, I mean, it wasn't the same film by any means, but both of those films kind of gave me that sense of like growing up in that transition period between the 90s and 2000s. And I really dug that. And I think it's a shame that Devon Sawa hasn't done, didn't do more because now I think it's too late for him. But during that time where he was that young, I would have loved to have seen like a 2001 stoner comedy with Devon Sawa that was just straight up like, comedy at that point. But yeah, I mean, it was solid. I mean, it's definitely one that I'm gonna put on my list as like, one of the most nostalgic films for me.
Also, like too, I forgot to mention this. The ending of the movie where the hand is hiding and it hides itself into one of those hand puppets. So, I mean, obvious choice to hide your hand in a hand puppet, and then the hand puppet is the one like that's pushing the. At the end of the film, Jessica Alba is being crushed by a car it's on like a mechanic's lift, and so the the hand is over there and it's pushing down on the handle of the mechanic's lift, pushing the car up to the ceiling, and Jessica Alba's about to be crushed, but it's hiding inside that hand puppet, so it's like it's got this goofy look on its face and everything, and it's I always thought that was funny, even though I hate the ending of it whenever um, Anton's character gets knocked underneath the car and he's like ends up in the hospital with like every broken bone in his body. I just thought that was extremely dumb. It doesn't make any sense for the movie whatsoever. It was a dumb ending. That's the only thing I can say I didn't like about the film was the exact ending of the movie.
Yeah. I mean, it did have those moments too that you're just kind of like scratching your head, but That's kind of like what makes it like fun and like wonky too, though. I gave it a pass for that. But what does that give your score? So we have a 5, we have a 7,
Mhm.
and we have an 8.
21.
20,
Wow. So Cocaine Bear,
taking the hit.
yeah, he's a little coked out right now. Pablo Escobar has left the building. But
I think they should make a sequel later on, and it's going to be the Cubs of Cocaine Bear, and it's going to be called Cocaine Cub.
that's hilarious. You know, you guys remember that movie that came out not too long ago? It was called Zombievers.
Yeah, I hated that movie.
I hated it.
No,
That's what it reminded me of. Like Cocaine Bear had this vibe that was very like Zombievers to me. Like if Zombievers had like an extra $20 million, I feel like it would have been Cocaine Bear. But Chris is in the lead right now, but I can tell y'all that's not for long because I have a film here that is an absolute favorite of mine. And I had not seen it in such a long time because it's not easily accessible. And it's criminal that this film is not easily accessible at this point. And it is by Peter Jackson. It is an amazing film. It is called King Kong. That's it. No, but honestly, right. I'm not too far off here. So
not
this,
too far off.
guys, I guarantee at home, somebody's like, I know what that guy's gonna say. We're talking about the 1993 film Brain Dead, and this film is goopy. That's the first one right there. It's
I told Mike, I said, I guarantee you when Tyler does his introduction, he's not going to call it Dead Alive. He's going to call it by the original Australian release or New Zealand release of Brain Dead. And I was right. I knew it.
It's called Brain Dead. Okay, it's so the film. It's Dead Alive in the States, Brain Dead everywhere else. But the thing is it's just like it was meant to be called Brain Dead. Peter Jackson wanted to be called Brain Dead. We love Peter Jackson here. Come on, give me a break. But anyway, so basically, how do I even describe this film? How do I even start? So it starts off on we have Skull Island. So that's the first thing. Skull Island right there. That's where, obviously all the creatures and Kong's from to begin with. So right here in the middle of Skull Island, there is a Sumatran like spider monkey or spider rat, right? And this spider rat basically gets shipped off to this New Zealand zoo. This is the setup. And we kind of get this like kind of communal town that's very like kind of small town anywhere kind of place. And this dude goes to the zoo with his mom, and she gets bit by the Sumatran spider rat monkey creature from Skull Island. That's the setup.
It's a stop motion rat monkey.
Right, yeah. But let me tell you, this is absolutely the most insane thing you've ever seen in your entire life. It's very goopy. It's very it's fun. I love this so much. I don't know how to even describe it. There's a scene just to describe the goop. There is a scene it's about pudding,
oh god, yes.
And she gets bit by
spider. Before we get into that, Tyler, this movie is deemed the goriest Fright film of all time. And I even like most people would say, oh, not today, because like, the Evil Dead remake from 2013 had raining blood and Evil Dead Rise had 72 gallons of blood spilled. No, I think this movie still to this day is the goriest movie I've ever seen in my entire life. From start to finish, this movie has blood, goop, bodily fluids of all sorts, everything, even urine, everything is flying in this movie. And getting back to the scene you're talking about, if you want to describe the scene, it is something that makes me gag just thinking about the scene. I could watch it 10 times and I'll gag all 10 times.
It's just like you think about those scenes that like the shock factor. So you have the cheese grater scene from Evil Dead Rise. This is that scene for them. And there's this moment where they're all eating pudding and they're having this casual conversation.
Oh god, yes.
Because at the same time, no one notices this shit going down, even though it's going down. And the woman like is absolutely just falling apart at the table. Like her ear is hanging by a thread there, and they're just sitting there saying, "Oh, this is the best pudding I've ever had," kind of thing. And he's like, like eating it
Just
up.
just him alone before any goop happens, just the close up of him taking a bite of the pudding by itself. It's just the way it's just so
Oh
gross. The
God,
way he
stop!
eats
Pudding's
it.
goopy. The pudding adds the goop. That's what it is. The pudding
Dude,
It's so
itself is like part of
nasty.
it. It's
I'm
gross.
going to interrupt you both. I was actually beginning to eat something, and when that scene came on, I left it in the microwave. I did. I did. I didn't eat. It's the most disgusting thing I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot of disgusting things.
So she shoots across the entire like table. All I mean, like, they're sitting pretty far away. This got some air, like whatever is shot out of her. This is pussy. It's like a pussy blood, if I'm remembering right, and it lands right inside of this goopy, gross
Uh,
pudding that he's just going on and on about how delicious it is, and then he's
God,
spoon in the most barbaric way and like shoves it into this nasty goopy pudding with pus and blood and like fluids all in it, and he goes and starts eating it, and I'm sitting here like, and you just want to cringe but you also love it. There's something about it. Whenever you think horror comedy, that is cinema. That is like the pinnacle of cinema right there. I don't think that they could have gotten any like absolutely bonkers. And the fact that this is Peter Jackson that made this, I just cannot. He's
and
I mean,
that's not even like that is probably the most grossest scene in the entire film,
oh
but
yeah.
it is not the most over the top scene. There's even another scene that has to do with like a dinner table scene that makes me gag too. Is once so basically it's a zombie movie. Everybody that is been bitten or scratched or any infected by that rat monkey or anybody that was bitten by
It's
that rat
a
monkey
Motron
also
rat
gets in.
monkey.
Yeah, so it's basically a zombie film and everybody turns into zombies. But there's a scene where there's these zombies that are tied up to a table. They're the guy's trying to train or not train them, but like to keep them from attacking anybody. And he's got them kind of under control and he's trying to feed them and everything. And one of the zombies takes a bite of food and shoves it in its mouth and it comes out the back of its head. And like the food and the brains and everything is on the spoon hanging out the back of his head. And the other zombie reaches over, grabs the spoonful, and then puts it in its mouth and starts chewing on it. And it's
God,
so
it's.
disgusting.
But I will tell you
Oh,
who the best actor, the best character in this movie is the uh, the kung fu priest. Absolutely, the kung fu priest.
Hell yeah.
Just whipping ass all throughout the movie.
Oh yeah.
Loved it.
I mean, like what this film kind of delivers it all. Like there's necrophilia, there's like gloopiness, there's like zombie, there's horror, there's comedy. You have Skull Island there at the front. It's just everything, and there's like this kind of like weird, kind of like almost psycho style quality to it as well, because that like the mother, you know what I mean? So I mean,
yeah. And we didn't even really explain the plot. I mean, the plot itself
There
is
is,
over the top too.
yeah.
So the main guy, his mom gets bitten and she turns into the zombie, and he's trying to keep her from becoming a zombie. So he goes to visit this doctor to get this like tranquilizer pills or tranquilizer shots, and which looks like the reanimator serum.
right.
And so he puts the tranquilizer into his mom, and she basically stops being a zombie, like just dies, is dead or asleep or whatever for that time period until it wears off and she becomes a zombie again. But because she dies, family members start, coming over to the house, and like one person realizes that he's keeping her in the basement and he's going to tell on everybody if he doesn't like give him the house. And it's this giant mansion. So he throws this big house party at the end of the movie. And uh, all the characters for like the entire town basically comes to this house to throw this big party, and that's where the real fun begins. Is um, the zombies that he keeps the zombies locked up in the basement, everybody that's been attacked or bitten by the mom, um, and they all come out of the basement because that stupid annoying guy lets them out. and they attack everybody at the party, and then everybody at the party becomes a zombie. So there's like hundreds and hundreds of zombies inside this one house trying to attack Lionel, which is the main guy. It's so much fun. Like it's so fun.
And that's all you can really say about it. It's just so, I mean, like sitting
Over
on,
the top.
yeah. It's just like one of those like beard pizza style movies you'd watch with like friends. And it's just, it's fun to talk about. And it's not really necessarily the plot you would have to like even focus on. It's just like the crazy ass moments throughout that you could talk about. And that's just like, that's what makes it so fun, right? It's just, that's really like the pinnacle of this film is to know that.
There's a scene
Go ahead. Yeah.
in a cemetery where there's a
Oh
priest.
God.
Mike's favorite character.
Love it.
So there's this like fifth. I didn't even realize this. The movie takes place in like the 50s.
It does.
Yeah, so there's like this group of like the 50s biker gang members or whatever, like the Sharks versus the whatever. I'm just waiting for them to break out with like the finger snapping and like doing the little like dance.
Do up.
But they're visiting the cemetery and they're causing problems. They're like vandalizing tombstones and they're peeing on the graves. And the mom from where she was already a zombie gets buried, and she rises up from the grave and grabs the gang member by the dick. And like blood shoots everywhere. Like it's like more blood comes from him than in like his entire body. There's just more blood from that, and blood's flying everywhere. So he becomes a zombie. And whenever he becomes a zombie, the priest that's nearby realizes what's happening and starts doing kung fu to kill the zombie. And he literally
Absolutely
starts
amazing.
off by like he jump kicks the zombie and like severs the like rips the arms off, starts fighting with the arms, knocks the body like the head off, and starts like more kung fu, and then just jumps up and is like, "I kick ass for the Lord." Like just really quotable moments. I mean, it's so over the top and so outlandish, and it's comical, but it's done like everybody in the movie takes it 100% serious.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's yeah, absolutely. But it was meant to be like that kind of like, funny kind of goofy style film. And he did this once before with Bad Taste, which I wasn't. I mean, I still liked, but it definitely was nothing like if there's honestly, I know it's weird to say, but there's Brain Dead is nothing short of a horror masterpiece. Like this is like it. They did everything that you'd want it to possibly do, especially whenever you think of it being this is like a B horror movie in the 90s. And it's also not even it was made in New Zealand, and to know that a New Zealand B horror movie in the 90s could be that close to something that's near perfect in terms of like being this like B movie goofiness. It's just like, I mean, it's a movie that's absolutely essential for like horror fans. And I mean, like I said, it's underseen yet again. Another one of those like films that people should be watching and paying attention to that you don't. It would be a great double with, a Fulci movie, or you could watch King Kong with it. So it's very interesting that I do think it's in the same world as King Kong, and this is my theory. So like how Skull Island has like all the weird Sumatran like weird kind of like creatures, right? Well, what they take this spider monkey, Sumatran spider monkey from Skull Island, and Skull Island can only be a reference to King Kong and existed 70 years before the film. So it's just like, okay, they put the premise of this like as like this like weird King Kong Skull Island kind of like film, and then they put in this like Reanimator style. There's a little bit of a like a psycho kind of flair to it. It has like every little tiny subgenre of horror from like 30, 40, 50 years before the film came out thrown into it. Plus Peter Jackson's doing his own thing on top of that. The actors are playing this completely straight. They're doing a great job at it. The gore effects are fantastic. The way the entire script kind of goes together is absolutely fantastic. Doesn't make much sense, not really, even though like it does have a basic plot to it. But like we were talking about, the plot necessarily doesn't even matter. It's what they've done with it. It's just absolutely bonkers in every way that you'd want it to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and just when you
Oh
think that
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just when you think that it's done being over the top, it goes even further. There's another scene where the zombies that are being locked up start getting it on, and
Oh yeah.
it's also goopy because while they're doing that, they're biting each other's lip off. But they create a zombie baby, and I mean, they have the baby within what, a matter of minutes. Like the baby's born, and it's like a toddler size, and it's running around, and the guy tries to take it to a park,
No,
and he's trying to
that's
treat it.
we need to stop right there because the fact that he takes that baby, that weird like fucking like it is even a baby at that point, and he like takes it to the park. He's like, "What do I do with this? I'm just gonna take it to the park and let it play with other children."
Yeah.
I think that's what you were to say.
Yeah.
Go ahead, because you're nailing it there. Yep, absolutely.
And it's so fucking hilarious whenever so the baby gets out and it starts running around, but nobody notices the zombie-esque of it. They just think that it's a normal kid. And he's trying to stop it from hurting anybody at all. So he's picking the baby up and he's like casually, like he's wanting to hurt it, like he's slamming its head into like the swing post and on the ground and like touching
Yes.
it, but he's trying to make it look like he's not doing that at all. So he's
Dude.
like slinging around. It's so hysterical.
Oh yeah,
That's
that's
great. Yeah.
my favorite scene too, because it's just like no one's noticing this baby is a little off at that point. So yeah, it's great.
At that point, that scene though is like a Three Stooges segment. Like you got the baby running and it jumps off like the seesaw, and the seesaw like he does like the splits over the seesaw. It hurts him,
We
and then like it
we
rolls down
compare
the
Brain
hill.
Dead to Three Stooges.
No, I said the scene is like a Three
Right.
Stooges scene,
Yeah, I'll give it.
and like the zombie baby's like rolling down the hill, and it's
It's
fun.
like
I like how
slapstick.
yes, he puts he looks over and he's like trying to see like, oh, how do other people, play with their baby? And like there's this woman who's holding like a teddy bear up and she's playing with the baby. So he does the same thing. As soon as he puts the teddy bear up to the stroller, the baby like starts eating it. It's like he's like, ah, ah, ah. It's so
Yeah.
good. It's so good.
It is in every single way. And I think we are completely like I think we're all on the same page here with this.
Oh
It's
yeah.
absolute essential.
This was Mike's first view. Mike had never seen this before.
I've
No
never
way.
seen it.
And
Never
it's
seen it.
essential, is it not? You have
Oh
to
my!
you have to see it.
It's a must watch, and God, you could watch this anytime with a group or just by yourself. But
Oh yeah.
dude, it's a fantastic movie. It's over the freaking top, disgusting. Um, God, I don't even know a word to describe this movie, but
Oh,
fucking disgusting.
Goopy.
Goopy. There it is. It's
Yep,
goopy.
yep,
That's the
goopy.
word.
It's
And to
goopy.
know that this is the guy that made the like fucking like The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings. He's made like these $400 million films, and he's like an Academy Award winner at this point, and he made this goopy ass like crazy, bonkers, wild Skull Island esque zombie priest kung fu movie. I mean, can you even describe it? It's what was it called, Chris? And that it's like a I'm missing it here. I know that you guys know what I'm talking about, but there was a style of movie. It was like Body Melt. It was always Australian pictures, kind of, and it was a style of filmmaking. And
Body like it's like body horror.
it's like splatter. It's splatter. Like it's like a splatter horror is what it is. And this kind of takes horror comedy. It's even deeper than that because it's not quite as serious as Evil Dead, even though Evil Dead's a comedy at its heart. But it's also not quite a comedy because it has like the splatter elements. So it has this weird like hybrid mix of horror comedy, and it goes completely batshit with all the splattery,
Yeah, everything. Because like when you see a zombie movie, you're thinking somebody's going to be like, oh, they're going to take a gun and they're going to shoot all the zombies to get rid of them. This guy takes a fucking lawnmower and starts walking
Yeah.
around the house,
Yes.
like the living room of the house, lawnmower revved up, going around just taking body parts, limbs off of every single person, turns around, sees that they didn't have any effect to him whatsoever, even though the house is covered in blood, and goes back around for like round two and round three. And then like does this whole like Home Alone like slipping on the blood, like like trying to run, but is running in place because the blood's so slick. Uh, but I cannot say how much I love this movie enough. It's an amazing movie.
And
It really is.
done it, but I mean it's gory. It is extremely it is. I think that it does hold up to the idea, I think that you mentioned that a lot of people claim that this is the goriest film of all time. And it kind of is. It really is. Like if you think about like, hey, give me an example of an extremely like possibly the goriest movie ever made in the history of film. It honestly, Brain Dead is the contender. It may very well be the goriest thing I've ever seen in my life, but it's not gory in this disgusting way. It's gory in this like celebratory way. Like
It really is. Yeah.
it's so weird.
Except for the pudding.
The pudding, yes, that is
I
the
could
one.
never, I could never eat banana pudding again.
Is that what it was? Banana pudding?
I don't know.
It was like a custard, yeah.
It's like weird, like custardy, yeah. But that pudding, like, he just picks up that custard. He's like, "Oh, baby, it's so good," kind of thing. And as he's doing it, it like flops around. Like you could just see how jelly it is.
I want you to do that accent again.
All righty there, mate. I don't know.
You're like,
It's so good. I have to get a second helping of this one. I don't know, you know what I mean?
Oh God.
All right, guys, I want to give this a 10 out of 10. I have to give this a 10 out of 10. I have no other choice. It's a 10.
So normally I would give this an 11 out of 10, but because of the nasty pudding, it drops at one score, so it got a 10 out of 10 for me.
If you just give this a 1,
I give this as a point, a 0.5. I'm just playing. No, it's absolutely.
As a first time, give us your.
I'm going to tell you this. What put this movie over the top was Kung Fu Priest. I laughed so hard when I saw this guy just brutally beating the shit out of zombies, like it was like tying your shoe, just tying the shoe. It was so over the top, and I was so disgusted and turned off by this. I wanted to watch more of it. And I very rarely rate movies this high, and I'm talking like Halloween and stuff. I gave this movie a 10 out of 10. It was really good.
Yes.
Yes, it was really good.
I'm not kidding. Is this the first movie we've ranked a perfect 30?
This is the first one. This is our Hall of Fame, the Fright Fights Hall of Fame, Dead Alive, the goriest movie ever made.
How is it a 30 out of 30?
So disgusting. I want to watch more of it.
I have never thought that would be a 30 out of 30. And it is. I mean, it's so fucking good.
It's wild. Okay. It is really wild.
Could you imagine if Peter Jackson would come back and make like Deader Alive?
I would love that, honestly.
Oh man, let's do it.
His career at this point, I don't see him doing it ever again. But I've mentioned before, I think maybe Chris, we talked about this like years ago, how much I would love if Peter Jackson was like, kind of like Quentin Tarantino changes his genres every couple of years. I really wish that Peter Jackson would come back to horror one time. Now that he's like a major filmmaker with like, all this behind him now. What if he came back and did like a $70 or $80 million splatter film and made it like a 3-hour epic of just like gore and like craziness? I think that it would be something that I would absolutely fucking love to see.
Yeah, same.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
All right, guys. So I'm the winner.
You are the winner.
I'm not the winner. Dead Alive is the winner.
And you're welcome, Tyler. You're welcome, because I was actually gonna pick this movie, and then whenever I realized that Tyler was like really wanting to pick this movie, I was like, all right, I'll pick Idle Hands.
You're
welcome.
Another movie in mind, and I'm like, surely, I mean, like, whenever Chris was like, I'm gonna pick this, I'm like, if you don't pick it, I'm gonna pick it. We have to do. If you think about horror comedy, splatter, and like gore, that's the first one you got to pick. It's just one. It's an essential. So yeah, I'm glad that we were able to discuss it, and I think that I'm feeling a Brain Dead full cast like chat about this. Like we should actually like do a commentary or something. But yeah, Awesome. So what we'll do, let's take a quick break and we're gonna spin the wheel, right?
That's right. Let's spin the wheel and see what we're going to get next.
All right, we'll be right back, guys.
All right, welcome back, guys. This is time for us to spin the wheel for a next episode to see exactly what category we're going to get to choose our films from. Tyler won, so he got to pick the next category replacement section, and he removed the horror comedy and added family horror. So explain that to us, Tyler, real quick, what this family horror category is.
Yeah, so we're not talking about like Frankenweenie or Coraline or something. We're actually talking about horror as it relates to a family dynamic. So it could be any kind of style of horror that doesn't have anything to do with like, a group of friends camping or something like that. This is the kind of horror that we're looking for with family horror. Centers around the concept of a family, whether it would be falling apart, things happening that's horrific to them in the way that we can all like relate to that as well. I think would be really interesting to add. So yeah, we are looking for horror movies that also takes place within a family. That's what it is.
Okay. All right. So with that being said, I'm going to go over the category sections really quickly again, and then we'll spin the wheel. So first off, we have 80s slasher films, found footage, possession flicks, Clown Town, films from the year you were born, werewolves, Shark Attack, A24 horror films, so films from that company, a movie commentary that could win. We can do a commentary over a movie, or a celebrity interview from the world of horror. A tier ranking where we rank a franchise or a film, or a category of any sorts. And what else was on there?
That
Is that
was
it?
yeah, the
Oh,
full
the family horror. Okay. So Tyler, if you want to spin the wheel, we'll figure out what our next episode is going to be.
Oh, I am nervous and I am very excited. I always get so nervous to see what's going to be. Oh no!
Oh,
Oh,
A24.
24.
So this will be any horror film that is released from the company A24.
I know that sounds weird, but no, that's not weird because the listeners listening to this, everybody knows they've released, 75% of their catalog is horror films. So there are dozens, honestly, that we could pick.
Yeah, yeah. It's going to be, sorry, I'm not the biggest fan of A24
That's
horror.
enough. That's enough.
So we will see how this goes. I'm curious at what
This is
I'm
going to
going
be
to
the best
choose.
battle so far, I swear, because I think it's going to be so polarizing. Chris is going to get pissed. I'm going to get pissed. None of us is going to win.
No, nobody's going to win. It's going to be the lowest rating ever.
All the film bros on letterboxes would be sitting here like, don't fucking listen to Fright Fights podcast at all they're talking about, kind of thing. And we're all gonna be sitting here just fighting about how Hereditary is an absolute fucking masterpiece. Absolutely. Oh, I can't wait. There's been so many movies I've wanted Chris to see. I think that you guys are really gonna dig this. I'm excited. If you can't tell. That's it. We're watching it right now. Here we go.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right. Thank you guys for listening to another episode of the Fright Fights podcast. We appreciate you all. We love you all.
We love you so much.
Bye-bye.
Come back next week. We're doing A24 horror, guys. Come on.